aggressive, robust transportation infrastructure response to the falling state of our roads and bridges. Our Rhode Island infrastructure is not cheap to fix or maintain. Bridges are plentiful, and the salt water simply eats the steel. The use of tolls is done throughout the country. I grew up in Hamburg, New York, exit 57 of the New York State Thruway, moved to Rhode Island from Newton, Massachusetts, exit 16 of the Mass Pike. It's a cost that's paid for by the user. This bill over time has undergone improvements, less borrowing, greater oversight, moving the auditing to DOA, as well as greater transparency in each of the projects, cost under contract, timeline, as well as a final cost for all of the public to view, as well as highlighting the federal law mandating the inclusion of at least 10% minority and women-owned businesses in the contracts. This provides good-paying jobs to an overlooked group within the construction trades. Most importantly, it also clearly states no tolls to cars. By supporting this bill, I see the state of our roads and bridges and the need for comprehensive repairs to be Rhode Island's highest priority. This legislation puts a hardship on some of our industries, and it must be in our collective will to see through a budget that recognizes this priority by limiting spending and look to make necessary cuts in our tax environment for all our businesses and residents. Fixing our infrastructure is the priority, and it is why I'm supporting this bill today. Thank you.
Representative Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I feel like it's a deja vu all over again. 4 years ago, I stood in that seat and I debated the Sakonnet River Bridge tolls unsuccessfully. And in my 2 years of vacation, that toll plan was revisited. And that toll plan was taken away because this House collectively decided that tolls in the East Bay were a bad idea and we're going to find the money elsewhere, and we did. And that money to this day goes into the Transportation Trust Fund. Needless to say, my constituents are energized over the toll issue. And they're energized over the toll issue because of a lack of trust they have. A lack of trust with the General Assembly and a lack of trust with the DOT. A bridge was built there using federal funds, and they were told it was going never be tolled. And then we came back and told it. We are back. After we said we had fixed transportation funding, after we gave them tens of millions of dollars a year more, we got them on a path to sustainable debt management, and now yet again it becomes a crisis. Not a problem on the horizon, but a crisis. No one in this room, no one I have encountered in this debate so far denies that we have an infrastructure funding problem in this state, denies that we don't have quality infrastructure in the state, denies that we don't have good enough infrastructure for what we pay for it. But if our goal is to fix how we fund infrastructure, this bill does not do it. Take away for a minute the Garvey, the new Garvey debt, the refinancing of existing debt. We could do that tomorrow. I don't think there would be great debate. And we'd be able to front load a lot of projects. The real debate is about the tolls going forward after that. And when you look at the operating costs, and when you look at how many times this proposal has been cut in half by the governor and by DOT in its many iterations on its way to the floor today, we're going to get so little money after all of the expenses and the interest are paid. Why is it worth it? In the governor's budget that she just proposed to us last week, general government spending is going up by over $50 million. This week to the media, the governor and her budget staff explained many of their assumptions in the budget as to how they found close to $100 million in new revenue. And having looked at the budget, I think they're absolutely right. There were growth in programs, we got more money. We were able to find $100 million, fund general government by an extra $50 million. But we can't find an extra $16 million to put into the Transportation Trust Fund, which would be the extra cash we would be getting from all of these gantries. From a policy perspective, this is not the right way to go. Don't think for 1 minute that this is some transformational fix as to how we fund infrastructure, and we're going to leapfrog all of the other states and have the best roads and bridges in the country. It was far from that transformational. As a bill, it has its serious flaws. I know many of you think that the Republican caucus tonight was attempting something close to a filibuster, and that we want to be here as long as you are by putting in amendment after amendment. But each of those amendments addressed flaws as we see them in the bill. And so tonight, by passing this bill not amended, we are saying DOT should have unlimited authority to make very important decisions. There should not be a limit on the number of gantries that could be on roads and bridges in our communities. There should not be a limitation on the government to collect data on vehicles that they have never collected before. And most strikingly, that we think we can pass off on our constituents this idea that if we want to toll passenger cars, it would have to be approved in the Constitution. Let me make it very clear, because I know many people are watching tonight, not in this chamber. This bill does not call for a question on the ballot in November asking the voters to keep there from being a toll on passenger cars. It's simply a statutory requirement that if we wanted to toll passenger cars, we would have to go to the voters first. Take it from me. Legislators come and legislators go. If anyone thinks that a future legislature is bound by that, you're joking yourself. If they want to put tolls on passenger cars, they simply remove that provision. And so this bill contains no true protections for passenger cars, even though I think a majority of this room, if not everyone, thinks that passenger cars should not be tolled and that it would be appropriate to put in the Constitution, since that language made it into the final bill.
30 seconds.
We have not put in the protections we have promised to our constituents. This is a poorly worded bill, and this does not transform how we spend money on our roads. Look at our recent legislative history. We will be back at this. We have not fixed DOT. They will continue to waste money. And we have lost the trust of our constituents who expect us to fix this problem. Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you. Representative Lita Marshall.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have much to say on this bill, and especially being that the East Bay was invoked in some of the debate. I'm proud and honored to serve with the colleagues in this room because of the talent, the heart, the energy that you all put into this, as well as the sacrifice that you take from your families, your friends, and your jobs. But I also will tell you that having been an elected official, going now 14 years, the one thing I can tell you that the public wants is they want leaders to make the difficult decisions that they're not able to do themselves. Now, I don't work by innuendos. I don't work by sound bites. But I will tell you that I work by balance. And I listen to my constituents as well. And you know what my constituents say to me? They're proud of the work we've done over the last several years. They're proud that the state is getting stronger economically. But you all know it, that perception is reality. We heard it in the debate tonight. When you drive through Rhode Island and you see a crumbling infrastructure, it turns you off. It turns you away. And is a detriment to the economic strengthening that we all seek to do for our constituents. We're not trying to place this burden on our taxpayers. This bill is specifically geared to the people that cause the most damage, the industry that causes the most damage. And trust me, my friends in the Truckers Association, we are there for you. We have been there for you for the last several years, and if then some, with the corporate tax reduction, with tax incentive plans, with apprenticeship programs. And ladies and gentlemen of the House, you know me very well. I work in the trades. I'm proud to work in the trades. You know why I'm proud to work in the trades? Because the trades are not a job that will be exported. They will be here forever. The kids that graduate there from their apprenticeship programs make $70,000 plus a year, including benefits. That's something that we should be proud of. That's something that we should support. That's something that we should foster. And that's something that we should embrace. You know what's funny? I heard that I was being considered the strong arm in the room. That's pretty interesting, being that I haven't been recognized for any of the work very loudly for the years that I've been here. But we put a revolving road and bridge fund infrastructure program that's sustainable, that cities and towns can make the taxpayers' dollars go twice as far. This bill does that. This bill gives sustainable monies to cities and towns for work forever. And if you think that this is the last time that we're going to have to deal with a difficult decision because of infrastructure underfunding for decades, you're sadly mistaken. Because, friends, it's coming down the road in other infrastructure projects, and you know it, the public knows it. And if we continue to strengthen this state economically, in growing jobs, in beautifying our infrastructure, that money will be there in our budget from general revenues for decades to come. Most importantly is the maintenance. We're talking about fixing them now, but the perpetual maintenance that is in this bill is critical, because we all know that Rhode Island has the most difficult freeze and thaw of all 50 states. And if we don't maintain our storm drains and maintain the clearing of those drains on a biannual basis in spring and fall,
30 seconds.
Ultimately, it'll continue to degrade. That's what's really truly important to our constituents. That's what's truly important to our constituents. Now, I heard impact the state for decades. I truly hope that we do impact the state for decades. We impact it constructively by strengthening our infrastructure for our children, our grandchildren, and their grandchildren after, without hurting the taxpayers in a whole. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Palangio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Trying to put things into perspective here. The amount of media, if you turn on the radio, all we've heard about for weeks is this toll, the toll. You turn on TV, it's on TV every night. We'll pick up the paper, it's on the front page of the paper. Is it an important issue? No question. Raising taxes, always difficult. Who wants to raise taxes or create a new tax? It's not something anyone looks forward to doing. Sort of like going out to dinner. The dinner's delicious. Who wants the bill? But it's something that has to be done. Goes with part of the whole experience. And I also heard this is the most important bill we're going to be voting on all year. Seriously? Seriously. It's the most important bill we're going to be voting on all year. All the media coverage and the truckers driving around the building beeping their horns, too bad they weren't doing that for education. Too bad they weren't doing that we have such a low graduation rate. Too bad they weren't saying, we want 100% of our kids who enter school to graduate. And we're going to drive around the State House and beep our horns, and we're going to talk about it on talk radio, and we're going to put it in the front page of the paper until we achieve 100% graduation rate. Wouldn't that be something? No, that's not going to happen. No, it's not going to happen. But this is the most important bill. Can you imagine what our education system would be like if we focus as much attention on that as we are this bill? Is this bill important? Most definitely. No question it's important. But the most important bill? Has anyone walked through an urban school? The mold? The lavatories? It's deplorable. The sports programs that are being cut? But we're talking about truckers and a $40 toll. Mr. Perlman, gentlemen, I wish there were more Rhode Islanders like him. Kind, generous person. It's going to cost him $1 million more a year, so he states. What is his gross? $1 million sounds like it's a tremendous amount of money. But compared to the amount of business he does, if he raised prices 1 penny for every product he sells over $1, he'd probably triple that. I don't know his business. He's obviously a very, very bright businessman, and I hope and pray he doesn't leave this state. But if he does, certainly don't want him to. I've also heard my buddy, Rep. Giarrusso, one of his neighbors, is trying to sell his house while he still can, because Rhode Island's such a horrible place. Well, the average per square foot price in America is $1.50 a square foot. In Rhode Island, it's $1.78. So it's in almost the 70th, 75th percentile of values. So it can't be such a horrible place to live where everyone's leaving the state in droves. It's such a horrible place to live. But yet, our home values are in the top 50 percentile. It doesn't make any sense. Let's raise the gas tax. That's the best thing to do. Our constituents would love that. That's a sneak tax because they don't know actually we're doing it. It goes up a penny, goes up 2 pennies. In actuality, Rhode Island's gas tax is 34 cents. In Massachusetts, it's 26.5, I think. So we're 8 cents higher than Massachusetts now. And those friends of mine who have borderline communities, what are they going to do? So they're going to be that much. So you're going to put those gas stations out of business, or those working class folks. This is the best in an uncomfortable situation. Our roads and bridges are deplorable. It's, you wouldn't even mind if we're in the bottom 10 percentile. No, we are the worst. We're the worst. Not close to the worst, the worst. I see these guys up here. I feel bad that it's a difficult thing that we have to do, but certainly it most likely will get passed on to ultimately the consumer. But it's probably the most gentle way to fix our repair our roads. Certainly no one wants to raise taxes. But I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I hope we pass it quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative McLaughlin.
Madam Chair, members of the General Assembly, tonight I stand in support of this bill, and I'll tell you why. We've been through a lot. The governor's original proposal, you know what it was, $1 billion. Everything's been cut in half. There's a lot of hard-working people here tonight, And, I'm sick and tired of hearing half-truths, okay, that are not true. I've received threats and emails, but I've also received legitimate concerns from my constituents. All right? All I'm going to say is, what are the alternatives? We raised the gas tax, which has been a regressive tax for the last 10 years. All right? What are we going to prove? We've got, believe it or not, consensus tonight, and we kind of tighten up the bill. And, I trust that this bill will move us forward. I really do. Am I 100% sure? No. But I know one thing. The roads in my district, okay, just in my district, and I represent 1 and 2 in Cumberland, all of Cumberland, we probably got about $50 million worth of road work. And Central Falls, projects that are pending, $26 million worth of road work. And the response we get? We don't have enough funding. I think this is a great funding source, all right? Indiana is currently, right now, doing a $200 million project. What are we doing? $300-400 million at this time. But you know how they're doing it? Through tolling. We're one of 3, and I don't want to sound repetitious. These truckers that are driving the tractor-trailer rigs, they're getting a free ride and laughing at us. You know something? My father used to say, no ticky, no laundry, okay? You got to pay your way in this life. So that's all I'm going to say is, it's not a favorable thing, but I believe it's going to work out in the future. Thank you.
Representative Filippi.
Thank you, Speaker. Last year when we had the Taylor Swift tax proposal in front of us, the reason why I was so opposed to it is because it was a new reservoir of state power. They would only grow. At first it would be homes over $1 million that were second homes, and then it would be all homes, and then it would be homes over $500,000. And it's because the nature of government is to expand and take more and more of the people's resources. At its core, that's why I'm opposed to this statewide network of tolling, because I believe eventually it will be expanded and it will continue to grow and will eventually touch our passenger vehicles. A couple examples where I think past history of this state portends negatively for the future are when we did pension reform. We promised that any surplus in the budget would go to fund the pension system. That lasted 2 years. We also promised that we'd do an 8-year phase out of the car tax. That didn't happen. And when we asserted a sales tax to fund DEPCO in the 80s, that was only supposed to be a temporary sales tax that would be repealed when DEPCO was fully paid off. That was never repealed. So it gives me great pause that the constitutional amendment, which was put forward as an amendment tonight, was rejected. Because the only way we can bind our future successors to the promises we make today is by amending their Constitution. So at its core, I'm opposed to tolls, and that's my case. But if we are going to establish a tolling program, we need to put forward the best bill possible. And this does not do it. We are establishing the most intensive system of statewide tolling in the nation. There is no limit on the number of locations or the locations. That map that the governor put forward, that was a political map. That was a political map. There were no tolls in the East Bay. That was a political map. We all know that the number of tolls can increase and the locations can change. There's no limit on the price of each toll. There's a limit on the total tolls paid per day. But if I were the DOT director, I may say, hey, the first toll you go through is $39. Everyone's a penny after that. We don't limit the power of the DOT director to make those decisions. There's no requirement that the data is securely maintained. We already had that debate tonight. I won't rehash it. No limitation on using gantries to issue speeding tickets or other moving violations. There's no limit on the privatization on the operations of the system. If you go to page 9, lines 24 to 31, they clearly allow a private operator to maintain and operate the gantries. I have a problem with that. I think it's a government function if we're going to go down that road, not some private operator picked through competitive negotiation. And I have questions as to whether the income has to be put into the restricted receipt account in DOT. Maybe I'm incorrect, but I look through here and I don't see a specific requirement that the operator has to deposit the money into the DOT. Maybe that's another problem in the bill that needs to be cleaned up. So I oppose this bill for many reasons. Philosophically, and beyond philosophically, the bill just needs work. It needs to be made better. And I oppose this wholeheartedly, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Chairwoman Macbeth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate you making this paper available to me. And I know it's rough to draft, but we've heard conversations on this floor tonight about trucks getting off the highways and bypassing the tolls. and I look at what's proposed for Cumberland Interstate.
I'm sorry, Representative, you've gone twice on the bill.
No, I haven't. I've gone once. I had an amendment, and I spoke on my amendment.
Okay, well, he has it marked twice,
Thank
but we'll
you.
give you the benefit of the doubt. Proceed.
Thank you. So we have Interstate 295 with Scott Road and Lee Road. If I'm reading this correctly, there's an exit before that that's a Cumberland exit, and there's an exit after that that's a Cumberland exit. If you get off the first one on Mendon Road, you can bypass the toll, and as a matter of fact, you can probably save time to get over to 95, going Mendon Road to Nate Whipple and through North Attleboro. If you want to get to 495, you'll probably save even more time than staying on the highway, because you'd go Mendon Road to Nate Whipple to Diamond Hill and take it that way. So I then look at the other paper that I was given with the project names of roads that are going to be done. We better add some roads to that, such as Nate Whipple Highway, because we're going to see an increase of trucks in our rural areas going past our schools, past our houses, and past our churches if this passes the way it is. Thank you.
Chairwoman Serpa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't going to get up tonight, and you know I don't speak much on the floor, but I was listening in Finance, and for the benefit of our members who weren't in the Finance Committee, one of the other members asked Director Alviti about raising the gas tax, and as someone stated, we pay about 35 cents a gallon now on the gas tax. He said that we would need to raise it about another 35 cents. So like many of you, I posed that question to a constituent who emailed me, and I said, are you enjoying the break on your gas tax now? And she said, we certainly are. And my family and I are going to take multiple vacations this summer. I said, well, we could fix the roads and the bridges by raising your gas tax 35 cents a gallon. She didn't think that was a very good idea. She said, no, that doesn't sound so good. Another point that was made in Finance. I don't know a whole lot about trucks, but I certainly listened. Director Alviti informed us that the average tractor trailer weighs 80,000 pounds. They typically transport a 40,000-pound load. So I'm using a round-trip toll of $40. I asked my friend Rep. O'Brien for a little help on the math here, and factoring it out and figure I do a lot of shopping. So if I purchase 1,000 pounds of goods a year, we did the math, a $40 toll maths out to about 3/100ths of a penny per pound. 3/100ths of a penny per pound. So if you buy 1,000 pounds of goods a year, and that's a lot of goods, you spend $30 a year. That's what this tax is on your constituents, $30 a year. A one-way toll, $20 at 3/100ths of a penny. That's that's 58 cents, half of 58 cents a year. So this isn't a big tax. This is way more palatable than a gas tax. I'd rather spend $30 a year. And the other thing as far as trust, I do want to address that too. Like you, I got some heated emails, but I was very heartened too because I got some other emails that were really very comforting and said, Pat, I don't envy you, but I certainly do trust you. I elected you, I trusted you because you were a teacher to read, to educate yourself, take in the facts, ask questions. Thank you for slowing it down. I trust you and I will support you no matter what decision you make. So members, I hope that some of you got some of those emails because I did. They made me feel very good. So I am very, very confident with this vote tonight. I feel very good about what I'm doing for the constituents of District 27. And when I call DOT and I say, how quickly can you get over here to fix Tyoke Avenue or Centerville Road, which are both a mess, I have no hesitation that they're going to be there fixing it fast, quick, and in a hurry. Thanks, Speaker.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Representative Jacquard.
Speaker, appreciate just the opportunity to have another minute to finish what I was saying. So if we went 5 years into this program, a full 5 years, the program anticipates that we will bring in $120 million from the tolls. If we got no money from those tolls during that up to the 5 years, it's not like the situation where the state lost $75 million. It's quite different because here money is not going to disappear. We would still have an asset. At the worst that could happen is we had $120 million worth of work done. We have a $120 million asset that we have to find another way to pay for. Big difference between that and just losing $75 million. The second thing is, it's being said repeatedly by at least one member, that if the tolls don't bring in the money because of a lawsuit or any other thing that we might not be thinking of, that we're going to have to think of tolling the cars. And again, we absolutely don't have to, because if we see that the tolls aren't bringing in what they're supposed to, or they're not bringing in anything at all, we just stop the spending. We just put the jobs off. That's all. We only spend the money from the tolls as it comes in on work to be done. It does not pay for any type of bonding or interest or anything else. So for that reason, Mr. Speaker, I think there's no risk in the tolling proposal. Thank you.
Representative Nunes.
Thank you, Speaker. I'll be brief. I know everybody's tired. One thing that's been bothering me since last week when I sat through the House Finance Committee hearing, and members of the committee were asking Director Alviti questions about diversion possibilities and diversion possibilities of trucks and maybe trucks going on local roads. He had a very quick response, very matter of fact. He said, well, we'll just post them to No Through Trucking. So it seems inevitable that that's DOT's solution to that problem. And generally, when you see a No Through Trucking sign, it doesn't specify classifications of vehicles. It just says No Through Trucking. So a concern that I would have is the ability of the DOT to further choke and restrict free passage and free trucking throughout this state. That's a real concern that, supporting this bill isn't just supporting the toll plan. It's the unintended consequences of our actions that we may not foresee right now, but the DOT is certainly planning on those types of actions to counteract possible evasion. So I've been thinking a lot about that, and I think it's a possible issue that could come up in the future, and I hope that we're diligent about that, about making sure that trucking is still allowed on local. First of all, I don't know how they would enforce it. The amount of enforcement that it would take to follow that would be massive. But I think we're already putting enough pressure on the trucking industry, and that could be the last straw. And with respect to what Representative Jacquard just said about just slowing down the spending, I don't think that's in our discretion. I think that would be up to the DOT, and they would have the discretion of whether or not to raise the tolls, not to raise the tolls, but to expand the tolls, or to slow the spending down. Thank you.
Representative Chippendale.
Thank you, Speaker. Just to be very clear. 4 years ago, I was PolitiFacted because I said I was arguing against a bill, if you can believe that. And I was saying that we should use the money because we have the worst maintained bridges in the nation and the second worst maintained roads in the nation. That was PolitiFacted. It was chuckled at the time. I am not going to argue. I will stipulate we have the worst roads. I stick by that. So we don't need to keep saying, as if it's new, we have the worst roads. Everyone in this room knows that. Let me tell you about my district that I love so much. It's unique in a couple of ways. It's unique in many ways, but one way is it's the largest geographic district of all of ours. It covers the most amount of land of all of ours. 37% of the Rhode Island and Connecticut border is in District 40. It runs from the southern part of West Greenwich, the southern part of Burrillville, to the northern part of West Greenwich. In that district, parallel to my border with Connecticut, is Route 395. To my south, there's a planned toll on 95. To my north, there's a planned toll on 146. Running east-west through my district is Routes 44, Route 6, which was deemed one of the 10 deadliest roads in the nation about 10 years ago. Route 6A, which is no through trucking on it, but yet 18-wheelers drive down it because it's a lumber store, there are restaurants, there are other businesses down there. Route 101, Route 14, Route 117, Route 118, running east to west. They come directly from 395. They all connect to 395. Running north-south is Route 102, which was the main north-south thoroughfare in Rhode Island, in the western part of Rhode Island for years. And Route 94, they run north to south. Jeremy in my district called me. His house is located, it's circa 1700s. It's an old, beautiful house. It's located pretty close to Route 102 in Gloucester. He was telling me about the damage to his foundation from trucks going down the road so close and so fast. And just the beating that the road takes. It's not voodoo, it's not magic, it's understandable. But my concern is diversion. Because make no mistake, the analysis was made to avoid that toll on 146 adds a mile and a half to someone's trip if they take one of those roads, depending on where they're headed. My friend Repucci pointed out that 1,000 trucks a day go through Route 6 in Johnston. They start in my district in 44, on 101, on Route 6, on Route 6A, on 114, on 117, 118, Route 14. They're just going to turn. Before they get to 146 on 395, they're going to turn down 44 or 101 or 6. Before they get south to Route 95, they're going to do the same thing. The village of Chepachet is going to be decimated. Foster is going to be destroyed. Greene, the peaceful, quaint little town of Greene in Coventry, is going to be a superhighway for trucks trying to go around tolls on their way to where they are. We see, and we've made some comparisons to other states, state of New York lost over half of their business by month end, owning part of it to the Port Authority bridge tolls. This is something we all got in emails. It's something that I looked into. It's ruining business in New York, and they're pulling back on their tolls. Myself, I ran trucks with my business coming in and going out. I know what it's like. I know what every penny costs and what it does to a job. I lost a customer over a truck that hit a pothole and blew a leaf spring with a $15,000 display exhibit on it because I couldn't get to the convention on time. They wouldn't hold a convention for my display to get there. So I had to repair my truck, and I lost a client. I know what it's like. I don't need anyone to tell me how bad it is. I've paid for how bad it is. I am painfully aware of how bad it is.
Time, Representative, 15 more seconds.
Thank you. I don't see any protections in here for expansion. We've already gone over that. This whole project from the beginning started with misrepresentations as to what trucks were going to be tolled. We've been told the Pawtucket River Bridge was willingly gone over. That is a lie. The truckers told us that. We've seen pension estimates from the same person that have just not hit it. Thank you very much.
Representative Tansey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, is this fair? And we can look at it 100 different ways, but I'm going to share my perspective. This form of taxation happens to be a very fair or progressive form of taxation. Those who use it the most pay the most. And yes, the cost will be passed on to consumers. We all know that, right? Because we currently are the ones who are paying for New York's roads. We're the ones paying for New Jersey's roads, Massachusetts' roads, all of the other states on the eastern seaboard who toll. We're paying for that because it does get passed on to the consumer. It's time for the people in other states to start paying for the quality of our roads. So nationally, these are numbers that were provided to us. 40% of the costs for truckers is spent on their fuel. So for those of you who say, raise the gas tax, raise the diesel tax, that's the fairest form of all. That already accounts for 40% of what truckers spend, whereas tolls are 2% of the cost for truckers overall. So I think it happens to be a rather fair way to spend it. Another term came up when we were in committee, analysis paralysis, someone from the Coalition for Transportation Choices. We have studied this issue year after year. You've heard about blue ribbon panel after blue ribbon panel. The one that was put out in 2008 said that we should be spending an additional $285 million a year for 10 years just to bring our roads up to, quote, safe and passable standards. 8 years ago, we failed to act on this. Every year of inaction has added up to more costs for every single Rhode Islander. There's a time to study and there's a time to act. And we can continue to study this for as long as you all want. I'm ready to act. I will be supporting this. We took a long time to review this. I know everyone likes to say we've had it for 13 days. The fact is we heard this bill last year. We've all been hearing from our constituents. And I spent my time off studying the issue because I knew it would come back to us. We were told it would come back to us. So I took the time to do the research. And I also want to say I'm the daughter of a trucker. So Representative Tobone and I shared a few stories back and forth because he too is the offspring of a trucker. So this is not unfamiliar territory for me. My biggest concern with the bill last year was the oversight of DOT. In my opinion, it's been mismanaged for decades. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to the new management because they have proposed radical changes in the way that the department is run. I will give them the benefit of the doubt, but I will not give them a blank check. We have not given funds to DOT. It is not gone into the general revenue fund. It has been put, every dollar that is generated in gas tax, every dollar that has been created in registration fees has gone into a specific fund that is statutorily regimented as to how we spend it. So there is accounting for it. The problem is there has been no oversight. That is all changing. They're completely changing their system to a project management system. Every project that is undertaken will be posted on a public website. There will be a starting number that says this project will count X amount of dollars. It will be finished on Y date. We all can take responsibility now and watch how each and every project gets taken care of. There is one person in charge of each and every project that will be held accountable for each and every project. We will hold them accountable. I, as someone who sits on finance and someone who sits on the transportation committee, subcommittee, will hold them responsible.
15 seconds.
The next point is a big one, so I will wait for another time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman Gallison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. As I said at the beginning, this RoadsWorks program is a 10-year plan that will, and the bill before us helps provide enough resources for that plan. In the past few years, we have been working towards a better solution, but none have been comprehensive enough to get the whole job done right. So we are here now facing this situation today to get Rhode Island's roads and bridges repaired, rebuilt, and maintained for the long haul, so we don't have to keep patching this problem. This is a permanent, sustainable plan. And as was mentioned, when people repairing our infrastructure is extremely important, because when businesses come to look at the state, they look at our infrastructure, or they go, and when they don't see it repaired and in proper order, they leave. I have heard tonight that we have a $9 billion budget, but more than 50% of that budget is, in that amount, is restrained, which means we can't spend it. For example, that is the Unemployment Trust Fund, TDI, tuition at college and universities, food stamps, and that's just to name a few. This means that less than half of that, which is left, is in general revenues for us to allocate. And I remind you that the remaining part of it, $1 billion is spent on education. So that leaves us even less money in which we can allocate. When we appropriate money each year, during our budget debate, we argue on each and every item within that budget. That is important, because that shows that we are responsible in how we are spending our state's dollars. Under this program, we are not borrowing monies to pay off the bonds with the tolls. What we are doing is, I apologize, we are not borrowing monies against the tolls. We are not paying back bond monies with toll monies. We have made progress in the past few years, but we need a permanent, sustainable plan, and that is what this bill does and what this bill accomplishes. It calls for action now and early to save money and costs in the long run. We can change the way we do business now and repair our infrastructure, and that's what this bill does, and I ask you to support this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Tansey.
The last point is brief, and it's just about us being pro-business, anti-business. And I have to say, job lot comes up a lot in the phone conversations that I've been having with my constituents. And I want to point out one or two things that we have done as a state to invest in job lot so that they can be a successful business, right? Every business thrives or fails based on the infrastructure that we as a government provide to them. So specifically to them, last year we removed the sales tax on energy. Probably every business in the entire state benefited. In a conversation that was had with them, they admitted that it saved them roughly $100,000 a year. So we are doing things to benefit businesses. And then we also built a $200 million roadway, pretty much leading directly to their front door. Route 403. So I'm pretty sure that that helped them become a successful, thriving Rhode Island-based company. And I'm sure that they would not have invested a $200 million in building the road themselves. That's something that we as a government take on to help our citizens and businesses in the state. I have a list here of all of the benefits, the tax incentives that we have enacted in my time, in the 6 years here, to help businesses in our state. And we do what we can. We can't do it all at once, and sometimes under crisis we have to act quickly. And I support this bill. I'm going to support what the governor has proposed in this year's budget of lowering the unemployment insurance tax. We do what we can for businesses, and this is an investment that is going to help all of the businesses in our state. So I thank you, and I urge you to support the bill.
Last light, Leader DeSimone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of the House. First off, let me say that what an excellent, superb example of a representative democracy. I mean, our constituents should all be proud. This debate went on for upwards of 7 hours. In my years here, this has been a civil, polite debate, and I think we should all be proud of ourselves for that. I'm certainly grateful. I know the Speaker, I'm speaking on behalf of the Speaker as well. We recognize that this is a popular subject. It's gotten a lot of attention over the past year. So I just think that our constituents have been well served, and I appreciate the debate. Everybody had their own points, and we got through it. 30-some-odd amendments, we got through it. So I think we should all be happy about that and proud. But let me just say a few words. I know a lot's been said. I don't really want to get that particular, although I probably will in some respects. But a lot's been said, either in the media or elsewhere, or, about whether or not this leadership is actually business friendly. So I think we should start the conversation on this bill in what the leadership has done, what the Speaker's leadership has done since he took office in terms of the business climate in the state of Rhode Island. First and foremost, we lowered the corporate tax from 9% to 7%, lowest in the Northeast. We raised the exemption in the estate tax from $921,000 to $1.5 million. And more importantly, we eliminated the cliff, the so unfair cliff. We eliminated the sales tax on utility costs for businesses. We eliminated the tax on radiology services. We eliminated the income tax on Social Security for most recipients. We have tried earnestly to make Rhode Island a business-friendly state. Now, a year ago, some people say this bill came out 13 days ago, but we all know it came out a year ago. It's been debated in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in the barbershops, on talk radio, the Journal, the Chambers of Commerce. This bill has been debated more than any bill I've ever seen in, I think it's 24 years. This bill has been all over the place. There's been different plans. RIPAC had 3 plans. The governor had another plan. So this bill has been all over. But what the Speaker and I have come to learn is, in spite of all the things that we have done, that this leadership, that this legislature has done to try and make Rhode Island more business friendly, what we found out is that Rhode Island is 50th in terms of infrastructure. We're the worst state in the country. And guess what else? Infrastructure is the most important thing to attract businesses in the country. That's what the Chamber of Commerce has said, and that's what most experts say. So one of the most important factors of business, the business climate, is our infrastructure. So if you really want to be serious about changing the business climate in Rhode Island, when you find out that we're the last state in the country, that we have approximately 20 some odd bridges that are in disrepair, that our roads are the worst. It's incumbent upon us to do something about the infrastructure. So that leads me to pretty much delineate how we got where we got. We're here now. So the leadership was faced with a plan that the governor rolled out last year. We put the brakes on it. We said, let's get an economic study, an impact study. Let's see what we really have to do to get this infrastructure moving. So at the end of the day, we have a revised plan that's before you today. So what does that plan do? It recognizes we have a problem, and it makes a bold initiative to solve the problem. And how did we do it? What is the main focus of the plan? One, we refinanced the debt that we have. We structured it in such a way that we'd have $120 million more in the refinancing. And then in the bill, we borrowed another $300 million with a cap on the interest of a $190 million cap. So we did two things. We borrowed, we refinanced. We all know that, and everyone seems not to object to that. But then we had another component of it, the tolling. So for me, every plan had something. But for the Speaker, for me, for the Democratic majority, for many other experts, the Chamber of Commerce, various mayors, we recognize that if you're going to fix the roads, you recognize there's a problem. So then, if there is a problem, we recognize we're going to have to do what? We're going to have to toll. Every state in the Northeast pretty much tolls. You've heard it costs $120 to cross the George Washington Bridge, and we all know of all the tolling that it costs. So once we recognize we have to toll, the question becomes, how are we going to toll? How should we best toll? Or should we not toll? Let's get money from the car tax. We chose to toll. Why did we choose to toll? Why was that decision made? In my mind, any other way we did it would involve Rhode Islanders, our constituents, paying 100% of the tab. If you use the gas tax, the diesel tax, any form that we would use, it would be our constituents, Rhode Islanders, some who may not have trucks, some who may not have cars, some drive motorcycles, some take public transit. But any other way we did it, they would all be paying. And that's the truth. No other plan brought in out-of-state money. So I know some proponents on the other side, they said, well, you shouldn't toll because I'm against tolling. We could take money out of the budget. We could do this. We could do that. Yes, but we know that the budget doesn't work. That's why we're where we are today. And secondly, whatever we did, it would be from our taxpayers, from our citizens, 100% of the burden. So this plan came up. We decided to use tolling like every other state does, and we probably should have did 30 years ago. That's probably why we're in the situation we're in, because our predecessors didn't have the foresight to bring tolling to Rhode Island, like they do in New Jersey, New York, on, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. Everyone else does it. So once we decided to toll, a study was done, a traffic count was done, and this project, the projection is 60% of the revenue is coming from out-of-state trucks. 60%. So if we're projected to do $40 million, it's $24 million. If we're projected to do $50 million, it's $30 million. Over 10 years, that's between $200 and $300 million of out-of-state money. No other plan, no other vehicle could produce that type of significant money from out of state. It's a question of fairness. It's undisputed that the trucks, the big trucks, the trucks over Class 8, cause the most damage. So they, out of fairness, they should be the ones paying the tolls, not the cars, because that would involve our constituents, way more of our constituents. So once you come to the premise you need to have a toll, then you have to say who should pay in the toll. It's almost universally accepted that the large trucks do most of the damage, and they're the ones that are paying the toll. 60% from out of state, and the other 40%, that's true. It does come from Rhode Island truckers. But it's also a question of fairness. And if you go by the fairness, they're the ones that do the most damage. And I see them up there, and many of them I know. It's not something that we want to do. It's something that we have to do. We're in a position that we have to do something. We can't maintain that we're creating a job-friendly, an economic environment for growth, and then ignore the most important factor that companies look at. We just can't do it. So in my mind, in the Speaker's mind, that's how we came with the tolling. That's how we came with the Class A trucks. And I have no doubt that when you go door to door, if you have to go door to door, or you have to go in your local barber shop, or wherever you go, the hairdresser, wherever you go, I have no doubt that if you explain this particular piece of legislation on the merits, that your constituents will support it. Because the converse of that is that they pay 100%. So I can't accept the fact that we're not doing what our constituents want. It's totally unacceptable in my mind. So I think this is a good plan. It's a plan that we can be proud of. Now, we all, I heard speeches and everyone had their great points of view. And I respect those points of view. But let me say this. There's a ton of misinformation out there. A ton. It's on talk radio. Some of us on this floor, I think accidentally, we love to talk and we say things that aren't really accurate. The people they're not against this because they don't trust us. They're against this because they don't know what it is. They don't know what it is. They think we're taxing them. We're preventing that. We are preventing that in this piece of legislation. It's the opposite. So, from time to time, we have, news media, and in America, we trust the news media, right? We give them First Amendment privileges. They could say whatever they want, right? Pretty much, because we believe in a free press. So, I think it's noteworthy that some of the news media have looked at this issue. So let's take the Providence Journal. Today they did an editorial. I just want to read a couple of pertinent sentences in this editorial because I think it's appropriate. Thanks to some gutsy and creative leadership, Rhode Island is close to dealing with the problem of deteriorating bridges and highways. Here's another quote. Such leadership is long overdue. For decades now, politicians have ignored this festering problem, letting bridges decline to the point that they may be dangerous. Here's another one. 50th in the percentage of structurally deficient and functionally obsolete bridges. And let me say this. One of the legislators here brought up 38 Studios. I forget which one it was. Actually, I know who it was, but I don't want to name them. Someone brought it up. The Journal who reports on this, quote, to 38 Studios, a widely speculative video game company. But that does not mean the state should never try to solve its problems. And I quote, The time has come to start fixing Rhode Island's problems. Politicians too fearful to solve them have not served the state well. We look to this legislature to get the job done. Providence Journal, today's paper. I have another article by Ed Rendell, who is a former governor of Pennsylvania. I am pleased to see Rhode Island's leadership on this important issue, and I encourage the General Assembly to pass the revised roadworks legislation as soon as possible. Now, a lot of the dialogue here tonight was, well, don't do that because if you do tolls, it's not business friendly, you're hurting businesses. Well, the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, which has 1,100 businesses in their chamber, they recommend this plan, and they say it is worth repeating that we are dead last in the nation on the factor that matters most to business. We must deal with the crisis. We must start there. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, the business community, the Providence Journal, everyone recognizes we're in a crisis situation, and they recognize that this plan is a significant plan to do a robust reconstruction of our roads and bridges and to promote a 10-year project of over $5 billion of spending in total. And this is just a small piece of it. The Sierra Club has endorsed it. In essence, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of this chamber, I think it suffice to say there's a need to do it. There's a direction to do it. We found a way to do it. It's supported by most business leaders, by the Journal, by most media, by experts. We've had an economic impact study. We have done our due diligence. We revised the original plan so that we saved $400 million of interest. Ladies and gentlemen, this plan is a plan that's going to put Rhode Island back on the map. It's going to create a solid infrastructure, and it's going to support our economy. It's going to create 6,000 jobs. Let's pass this plan tonight, and let's move on to other issues that this state badly needs. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Clerk, unlock the machine. All in favor, please vote green. Those opposed, red. Clerk, lock the machine. 52 in favor, 21 opposed. The act prevails. I believe that concludes the calendar, Clerk. Announcements and introductions. Deputy Speaker Limo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. I want to wish a very, very good friend. You wouldn't believe it the way he always screams and yells at me on the floor because he fights for what he believes in. Representative Trillo. And we disagree, but we're not disagreeable. At least I'm not when we argue. And we'll go out to dinner together. He's a great fighter for his district. He's a good friend. Representative Trillo, happy, happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Whip. Is this your actual birthday? Oh, happy. What a great way to spend your birthday. Hey, thank you for serving your constituents on your birthday in such a way. That's leadership, Whip. Chairwoman Macbeth.
Can we go back to new business, please?
Chairwoman Macbeth with new business. Folks, a little order in here. We're still in session. Announcements and introductions. Any other new business out there? And I've got a lot. Representative Tabone with new business. Representative Tanzi with new business. Any other new business? Chairman Shekarchi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, we have a House Labor Committee tomorrow. It starts at 3:30. As everyone knows, I try to move the hearings along fast. If anybody would like a bill that we heard last week and they were not able to be there, reposted, I'll be glad to do so. Please be prompt. The meeting will start at 3:30. Thank you.
Representative Fogarty.
Oh, God. Mr. Speaker, may I be voted, marked in the affirmative for item number 1 on the agenda this evening?
You may so order.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to transmitting all matters on the clerk's desk to Her Excellency the Governor, the Honorable Senate, or the Secretary of State forthwith? Hearing none, so ordered. Any other announcements or introductions? Seeing none, Leader DeSimone moves that the House adjourn. The motion is seconded by Leader Newberry. House stands adjourned. Nice job.